This is it, our last show of the 2022 spring season, and we're so glad you could take 10 minutes to watch. My name is Carl Azus, and our objective coverage of world events begins in China. Government media there say more than 100,000 people took part in an emergency online meeting this week. The focus, how to help the Chinese economy, the second largest in the world, as it struggles from the communist country's response to the ongoing COVID pandemic. While many other nations are learning to live with the disease, China has maintained a strict zero-COVID policy. And what that tries to do is crush every chain of COVID transmission. That includes mandatory quarantines, quick lockdowns, closed borders, mass testing, and contact tracing, which follows people wherever they go. But a growing side effect of this is that it's hurting China's economic growth. International investment banks expect it'll be significantly less this year than it was last year. At the meeting, China's government announced dozens of new efforts to stimulate the economy, including more tax refunds, loans to small businesses, and emergency loans to industries that are struggling. But though some of China's COVID rules are being relaxed, the nation's still pushing forward with the controversial zero-COVID policy. And that's created immense challenges during the Omicron variant of the disease, because while it's less severe than other versions of coronavirus, it's more contagious. CNN estimates that China's restrictions are impacting 220 million people across the country. Here's how.
This is part of my daily routine in Beijing. All right, getting my temperature check. Mandatory testing for the city's 20 million plus residents. I've got to show them my passport and they have to type it in every single time. In Beijing, nearly all public activity has been halted indefinitely over just a few dozen daily COVID cases. Not a soul in sight in the center of Beijing's luxury shopping district. All non-essential stores have been shut down, including schools and gyms, and all in-restaurant dining is banned indefinitely. The only crowds in Beijing are parades of COVID workers spraying disinfectant all over the streets. Officials here are cracking down early and aggressively to try and avoid the failures of the months-long lockdown in Shanghai. So it's green, I'm good to go in. I need this green code to enter any area in Beijing. If it turns red, then I could be stuck at home or sent to quarantine. Through these smartphone apps, authorities can carefully track the movements of virtually all of China's 1.4 billion people. If a COVID case is later found at this grocery store, authorities can quickly contact trace and figure out whose code needs to turn red. Grocery shelves here fully stocked. Beijing officials clearly trying to show people that no matter how long this partial lockdown lasts for, people are going to be fed. It's not going to be like in Shanghai, where people have been struggling to get enough food and daily essentials in lockdown. This is a building where a positive COVID case has been found. You can see the workers in hazmat suits, the blue barrier around the building. This is to keep the people who live there locked inside, but it also serves as a warning to other residents. There's a fear that if you spend too much time by a lockdown building, your QR code could turn red. This is just one of the many high-risk areas in Beijing. Residents avoid even transiting through the red dots on the map. It's lunchtime in Beijing's most popular food district. Normally people here would be gathered, crowded shoulder to shoulder, but now it is essentially a ghost town. With even most parks closed, there's nowhere for people to gather and see friends except for by the side of the road in these unofficial public spaces. And even here, there are signs reminding people to avoid crowds and security guards on the loudspeakers telling people to distance themselves. But after more than 2 years of these on and off restrictions, people are getting frustrated. A student protest even broke out at one of China's most prestigious universities over harsh COVID policies. Every part of our days are tracked and surveilled. People are concerned that this control is here to stay long after COVID is gone. Selena Wang, CNN, Beijing.
10-second trivia. Which of these American car brands is the oldest? Cadillac, Chevrolet, Ford, or Lincoln? Cadillac rolled onto the scene in 1902, making it the oldest car maker on this list. The average car in America is now a teenager. Let me explain. Americans are holding on to their vehicles longer than ever. This is according to S&P Global Mobility, which examines data from automotive markets. Now, the average car on the road is just over 13 years old, which means many are much older. And the average light truck is about 11 and a half years old. So combined, the vehicles we commonly drive are over 12. Analysts say there are several reasons. For one thing, there's an ongoing shortage of computer chips and car parts for new vehicles. That's hurt their sales and driven prices up. The used car market has been affected. Prices for previously owned vehicles hit an all-time high early this year, though they've dropped a little since then. Analysts say some cars are lasting longer than they used to, so people don't need to get rid of them. And junkyards are reporting their lowest scrap rate in decades. So people are putting more miles on what they have. In rocket launching news, you hear a lot about SpaceX. There's another private American company, one of its competitors, that has also received billions in funding from NASA. That company is Boeing. It also makes passenger planes, and its Starliner spacecraft just completed its first successful mission to the International Space Station. It returned to Earth this week in the desert of New Mexico. This was an uncrewed mission. Boeing hopes to send up astronauts by the end of the year, but it still has challenges to overcome. In this flight, there were problems with some of its thrusters, which helped maneuver Starliner in space.
3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Starliner is headed back to space on the shoulders of Atlas, powered by a workforce dedicated to its success.
We know now, however, who will build those spacecraft.
Ignition. And liftoff. Go Falcon. Let freedom ring. Godspeed,
3-4. Hard to think of a better story for our 10 out of 10 segment than a sharkcano. Yeah, a sharkcano. A NASA satellite recently photographed a plume of discolored water in the Pacific Ocean. Scientists say this is where an undersea volcano in the Solomon Islands is continuously erupting, and an expedition here in 2015 found that the crater is home to silky and hammerhead sharks. They're apparently able to tolerate the hot and acidic water, so it's a sharkcano. You'd have to be pretty daring to swim down there. Few things are crater than a shark that gives vent to its rage. No one would have to ash you to lava. You wouldn't lack a list of reasons to quit being silly and swim from the hill like Mag Mama told you to. I'm Carl Azus, and that takes a bite out of our last show of the season. Want to give a shout out to Jones Magnet Middle School and all of our viewers watching in Hampton, Virginia. We've got some new stuff in the works, so please keep up with us on our YouTube channel, and this here daily show will resume in August. From all of us here at CNN 10, thank you for being the best audience in news.